Joining me now is a young man who dropped
Good afternoon, everybody. From the very beginning of this year, Donald Trump and Republicans have failed to deliver on their core promise to lower the high cost of living in the United States of America. In fact, what Donald Trump and Republicans said is that costs were going to go down on day one. But costs haven't gone down, they're going up. Inflation is going up. Under Republican policies, housing costs are going up, child care costs are going up, grocery costs are going up, electricity prices are through the roof. And now, because of the Republican refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, tens of millions of Americans are about to experience dramatically increased health care costs. In some cases, their health insurance premiums will increase by $1,000 or $2,000 per year. That is unacceptable. It will be unaffordable for working class Americans, middle class Americans, and everyday Americans to be able to go see a doctor when they need one. And so House Democrats and Senate Democrats have been fighting hard to address the Republican health care crisis and to lower the high cost of living for everyday Americans in the United States of America. Because the reality is, America is too expensive. And far too many people are struggling to live paycheck to paycheck. They can't thrive, they can barely survive. And that's why Democrats have been waging this fight. And we'll continue to wage this fight. No matter what comes over to us from the United States Senate to the House of Representatives at some point this week. Our position as House Democrats has been crystal clear. We will sit down with any Republicans, anytime, any place, anywhere, in order to find a bipartisan path forward, but we're not down with their my way or the highway approach to governance. That's failed the American people. It's been a disaster for the American people, and the American people know it, which is why last Tuesday, Republicans all across the country got wiped out. One of the most decisive off-year elections ever in modern American history. And so as House Democrats, we know we're on the right side of this fight, the right side of the American people. And we're not going to support a partisan Republican spending bill that continues to gut the health care of the American people. And we're going to continue the fight to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. And if it doesn't happen this week, this month, next month, then it's the fault of Donald Trump, House and Senate Republicans, who continue to make life more expensive for the American people. Questions?
Some Democrats in your own caucus are suggesting Schumer is ineffective as Senate Democratic leader and should be replaced. You, of course, are critical of this deal. Do you view him as effective, and should he keep the job?
Yes and yes.
Do you trust, in this deal, there is language for President Trump and the Trump administration to reverse some of the firings that happened during the shutdown. Do you trust that the Trump administration and the president is going to sign off on that and reverse the people who have been fired?
We'll have to evaluate the legislative language, and we'll have a caucus meeting later on this afternoon, and we'll get a presentation from Rosa DeLauro, the top Democrat on the Appropriations Committee. The overwhelming majority of Senate Democrats, led by Leader Schumer, are opposing this bill in the Senate. And they'll articulate, there are a variety of different reasons that the bill is being opposed strongly by Democrats in the Senate, the overwhelming majority of them. And there'll be a variety of different reasons that we articulate in the House. Now, certainly we're going to continue to stand by our hardworking federal employees. By the way, Donald Trump and Republicans, this toxic administration, they fired more than 100,000 federal employees prior to the shutdown that they started beginning. So, of course, there's reason to be deeply skeptical of the administration and their motives as it relates to the hardworking federal civil servants and the federal workforce. And we will continue to be deeply skeptical of their intentions. They spent the whole year implementing the toxic parts, the most toxic parts of Project 2025, after lying to the American people last year, saying they didn't know anything about Project 2025. And part of that has been going after the federal workforce. So we'll see what the language looks like, but it doesn't change the core problem here, which is we need to decisively address the Republican health care crisis on behalf of working class Americans, everyday Americans, and middle class Americans. Thanks. Third row.
So Dr. Oz said that millions.
Who?
Dr. Oz said there are millions of phantom enrollees.
You got to hear about this thing. There's this new air purifier out there. It's basically a mold killer that destroys hidden spores and makes your entire
Under the ACA, is that being looked at as it possibly makes it so that people that are on the ACA are paying more, it's inflating the numbers?
That's like the most random way to start a question on a serious topic. Nobody who's serious in this country takes Dr. Oz seriously. No one. And I mean, it's shocking that the guy even was confirmed. But this is part of the reality of Republicans here in the House and over in the Senate. They're nothing more than a rubber stamp for Donald Trump's cruelty and extreme agenda.
Are the phantom enrollees being addressed, though?
I have no idea what Dr. Oz is talking about, and neither do the American people. Now, with respect to the Affordable Care Act, here's what I do know. That Republicans have tried to repeal the Affordable Care Act more than 70 different times in the last 15 years. They don't operate in good faith when it comes to the health care of the American people. And of course, as Democrats have repeatedly indicated, we're open to sitting down and having a bipartisan conversation about how to fix our broken healthcare system overall. But I'm not going to respond to any comments from randos like Dr. Oz, who is woefully unqualified to be in whatever position he holds in the administration. He's a joke. These people are jokes. But the issue of the health care of the American people is very serious. And that's what we'll continue to focus on. Back row.
Do you see in the Senate bill the extension of SNAP benefits rather than the possibility of a January cliff for them? Do you see that as a victory, or is that something that also raises questions?
Here's what I understand about the SNAP situation. Republicans this year, on July 3rd, subsequently signed into law by the current president, enacted the largest cut to Medicaid in American history, ripping away health insurance from at least 14 million Americans, and at the same period of time, cut $186 billion from SNAP. Republicans did that this year. They literally ripped food from the mouths of hungry children, seniors, and veterans so they could reward their billionaire donors with massive tax breaks that they made permanent. That's what Republicans did. They've launched an all-out assault on SNAP. They've weaponized hunger and starvation here in America, taken SNAP benefits away from more than 1 million veterans rather than honoring them tomorrow, which is what should be taking place in the United States of America. Republicans have done that. And so these people can't be trusted on the cost of living issue. These Republican extremists, they can't be trusted on the health care issue. And they certainly cannot be trusted on the SNAP issue.
As you know, this has been the longest shutdown in American history. You've seen chaos at airports, delayed SNAP benefits, people losing their jobs. And yet, the deal that Democrats agreed to has been a deal that's been on the table for a while now. Still no policy outcome on health care. So what do the American people gain from the past 41 days?
Our fight in the House of Representatives will continue to address the Republican health care crisis. We'll continue that fight today, tomorrow, this week, this month, next month, this year, next year. We're going to continue that fight to fix our broken health care system and lower the high cost of living for the American people. And the American people know that we're on the right side of this fight. It's part of the reason why you saw decisive Democratic victories last Tuesday and crushing Republican losses all across America. In Virginia, in New Jersey, in New York, in Pennsylvania, in California, in Mississippi, in Georgia, across the country, up and down the ballot. Because Republican policies have failed the American people. And as Democrats, we're going to continue to fight to make their life better. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Lugar. Throughout the shutdown, you referred to your Senate colleagues as courageous for rejecting the 14 previous attempts to reopen the government without an extension to the affordable tax care credits. Those 8 Senate Democrats who voted to start the process of reopening the government, do you still include them in that characterization of courageous Democrats who have kept the fight going throughout this shutdown?
Well, I don't have much to say about those individuals, and they're going to have to explain themselves to their constituents and to the American people. I certainly believe that Senate Democrats, the overwhelming majority of Senate Democrats, led by Chuck Schumer, have waged a valiant fight over the last 7 weeks, defeating the partisan Republican spending bill 14 or 15 different times, week after week after week, and continue to oppose this effort.
Are you wearing 7 layers and still freezing your man nipples? You need the new 300
of passing legislation that does not address the Republican health care crisis by extending the Affordable Care Act tax credits. But the fight is getting ready to shift back to the House, where we're going to work hard, hold the Republicans accountable. All of these loudmouths on the House Republican conference side who's been saying for the last several weeks that we have to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits. Now is their chance. This week, they have to come back from their 7-week prolonged taxpayer-funded Republican vacation. They can no longer hide. They can no longer hide. Mike Johnson apparently still hiding, refused to even answer a single question today. That's extraordinary. But they're not going to be able to hide this week when they return from their vacation. Thanks.
Speaking of the House, Speaker Johnson has not committed to holding a vote on subsidies, even though the Senate agreement would have them do so. What do you say to that? And then also, what do you think that would do to the relationship between Republicans and Democrats on the House side?
Well, the failure of Republicans to address the health care crisis that they've created in the House and in the Senate is no surprise, because House and Senate Republicans multiple times this year have been given an opportunity to vote to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, and multiple times this year already, in the context of the debate around their one big ugly bill, they voted against unanimously voted against extending the Affordable Care Act tax credits. So over the last several weeks, it's become increasingly difficult for them to hide from their position as it relates to the health care of the American people. And House Democrats, joined by our colleagues in the Senate, we're not going to stop the fight. We're going to continue to lean into the fight over the next few days and beyond until we actually get an outcome that makes life better for working class Americans.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. There's already extensive backlash coming from the Democratic base over feeling shortchanged by Senate Democrats who secured this deal without touching on health care. What do you think that this backlash can mean for the party going into the midterms next year, and also for the voters who just handed Democrats a decisive victory? Do you think that this will make them feel also shortchanged, disenfranchised, demoralized? Do you think that this will lead to a switch up?
House Democrats are going to take back control of the House of Representatives next year. I've said it before, and if I said it, I meant it. Now, with respect to the senators on the other side of the Capitol, they're going to have to explain themselves. But the overwhelming majority of Senate Democrats continue to remain in the arena fighting to fix our broken healthcare system and address the Republican healthcare crisis. This fight for us is not partisan. It's not a partisan fight. It's a patriotic fight. We're waging this fight on behalf of the American people. The 5 states that are most impacted by a failure to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits are West Virginia, Wyoming, Alaska, Mississippi, and Tennessee. 45% of the people, of the Americans who are going to lose health care or be at risk of losing health care if they don't, on the other side of the aisle, extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, 45% of them are registered Republicans. 35% registered Democrats, and 20% unaffiliated or independent. This is not a partisan fight for us. It's a patriotic fight. You know, one of the people that I met early on during this Trump Republican shutdown, came to Capitol Hill, was a 29-year-old named Mariah Plant. She's from rural Wyoming County in West Virginia. Her older brother is nonverbal, autistic, and requires 24-hour care. And Mariah is able to provide that care to her older brother lovingly and affectionately because of Medicaid that Republicans have now cut by the largest amount in American history. Her hospital in rural West Virginia is at risk of closing because of Republican policies in their one big ugly bill. And at the same time, this 29-year-old loving caregiver for her older brother.
Just look at what I got in the mail. It's Elon Musk's latest invention. He
gets her health care from the Affordable Care Act. And it's affordable because of the tax credits that Republicans now want to rip away from her. And so I'm fighting for people like Mariah Plant. Very different than the people that I represent in Brooklyn, New York. But she's an American, just like I represent hundreds of thousands of Americans. And that's what House Democrats are doing. We're fighting for the American people.
Thank you, Leader Jeffries. Have you spoken to your Democratic colleagues in the Senate who voted to reopen the government? And if so, what do you make of the argument that Republicans would not discuss health care during the shutdown, so they said there's no choice but to vote yes?
I have not spoken to them. Thanks.
Different topic, Mr. Leader, if you don't mind. President Trump announcing widespread pardons for the group of people that were involved in providing alternate electors, as they called it, for the 2020 election, and he also has allegedly received a commutation request from Ghislaine Maxwell. Just wondering about your thoughts about the way the president has handled his pardon power, especially given how critical he was of President Biden.
Well, Donald Trump, in terms of the exercise of his pardon power and commutations, is completely and totally out of control. Like, he can find the time to pardon a serial fraudster like George Santos, but can't find any time to sit down with Democrats on Capitol Hill who represent half the country in order to address the health care crisis that Republicans have created. That's devastating people in urban America, rural America, working class America, small town America, the heartland of America, and black and brown communities throughout America. And so what we're seeing with these toxic pardons and commutations coming from Donald Trump is more of the same. And look, the American people know these extremists on the Republican side have gone too far. And the crazy part about it is that they went too far on day one of Donald Trump's presidency. And it's been downhill ever since. On day one of Donald Trump's presidency, this guy pardons hundreds of violent felons who brutally beat police officers, 140 of whom were seriously injured. Life-threatening injuries in many cases. And then unleash these people on communities all across the country in ways that put those communities at risk. And what we've seen from Donald Trump since day one, since those toxic pardons of those violent individuals, is more of the same. From a person who promised to lower costs on day one, but doesn't give a damn about the American people. And what has taken place over the last 41 days is that the American people have seen Democrats fight for them, fight to make life better for them, fight to drive down the high cost of living for everyday Americans, and fix our broken health care system in the face of this overwhelming Republican assault on the health care of everyday Americans. And Republicans continue to stand up for the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected.
Thank you, Leader. Whether fair or unfair, Leader Schumer is taking a lot of heat from members of your own party. Why do you think he is the right leader for this moment, and why do you think he should stay leader of Senate Democrats?
Yeah, as I've indicated, listen, Leader Schumer and Senate Democrats over the last 7 weeks have waged a valiant fight on behalf of the American people. And I'm not going to explain what a handful of Senate Democrats have decided to do. That's their explanation to offer to the American people. What we're going to continue to do as House Democrats, partner with our allies throughout America, is to wage the fight to stay in the Coliseum, to win victories in the arena on behalf of the American people, notwithstanding whatever disappointments may arise. That's the reality of life. That's certainly the reality of this place. But we're in this fight for all the right reasons, because the extremism that has been unleashed on the American people is completely and totally out of control. Life hasn't gotten better for everyday Americans under Donald Trump and compliant Republicans. It's gotten worse. And the American people know it. And we've got to continue to stay in this fight until we end this national nightmare. And that's our commitment to the American people. We're in this fight until we end this national nightmare and can get back to a place where we continue America's long, necessary, and majestic march toward a more perfect union. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm very thankful to see you all this morning. I'm thankful to welcome you to what appears to be the beginning of the end of the longest government shutdown in U.S. history, as shameful as that is. I don't think it's coincidental, you know how I think, but it's after 40 days of wandering in the wilderness and making the American people suffer needlessly, some Senate Democrats finally have stepped forward to end the pain. It appears to us this morning that our long national nightmare is finally coming to an end, and we're grateful for that. At least some Democrats now finally appear ready to do what Republicans and President Trump and millions of hardworking American people have been asking them to do for weeks. But as we said from the beginning, the people's government cannot be held hostage to further anyone's political agenda. That was never right. And shutting down the government never produces anything. It never has, if you study history. And so here we are. I want to remind everybody this morning of another critical point that you've heard me here repeat over and over the last several weeks. It's something that I and Leader John Thune and President Trump and every Republican leader have all said repeatedly from the beginning. We have always been open to finding solutions to reduce the oppressive costs of health care under the Unaffordable Care Act. We just made clear that we would not and should not ever do that, that is, negotiate as hostages. And I've also reminded you here every morning that this president, Republicans have not just been talking about reducing costs and fraud and abuse in so many areas and in health care. We've been actually passing new laws to accomplish that urgent mission for the people, and we will continue to do so. So here's where we are by way of schedule, just so you know, you're following. And if you're not at home, if you're waking up to this good news this morning, the Senate's vote late last night of 60-40 opens the door now. The Senate is moving forward on an amended House CR, a continuing resolution, that will reopen the government until January 30th. Added to that are provisions to fully fund SNAP provisions through the end of the next fiscal year, which is September 2026. Guaranteed back pay for all federal workers who have been made to endure these hardships over the last several weeks. And it also includes passage of 3 appropriations bills, which we're grateful to be moving through the process. That is the Military Construction Veterans Affairs bill, it's the Agriculture bill, and the Legislative Branch bill. The Senate will be back in session this morning to finish their job, and we're certainly praying that they do. They'll need unanimous consent from all senators to fast-track their final vote. As you know, there are some procedural hurdles that one or more could throw in the way, but we certainly hope that they won't do that because so many people across this country are desperate for the government to reopen. At the very moment that they do that final vote, I will call all House members to return to Washington as quickly as possible. We'll give a 36-hour formal and official notice so that we can vote as soon as possible to pass the amended CR bill and get it to the president's desk. As you all know, and he said as recently as last night, I was with him, and he told the press, he said, we want to get the government open. He's very anxious to get the government reopened and to end the Schumer shutdown. We all are. With regard to the travel challenges, I spoke yesterday at some length with Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, my former colleague and good friend, and he lamented the serious situation that we have with air travel in the U.S. He's bent over backwards, as all members of the administration and the cabinet have done in all of their areas of jurisdiction, to try to keep the government working for the people and to mitigate the pain and the harm. But the problem we have with air travel is that our air traffic controllers are overworked and unpaid, and many of them have called in sick. That's a very stressful job, and even more stressful exponentially when they're having trouble providing for their families. And so air travel has been grinding to a halt in many places. And as of Sunday, nearly half of all domestic flights and U.S. flights were either canceled or delayed. And it's a very serious situation. So I'm saying that by way of reminder. I'm stating the obvious to all my colleagues, Republicans and Democrats in the House. You need to begin right now returning to the Hill. We have to do this as quickly as possible. Now, we look forward to the government reopening this week so Congress can get back to our regular legislative session. We have a lot of business to do, as you all know, and we will be working in earnest. There'll be long days and long nights here for the foreseeable future to make up for all this lost time that was imposed upon us. I want to close with something that's important. I think it's important to say that this is genuine. I mean this sincerely. We applaud the 7 Senate Democrats and 1 independent senator who did the right thing. They decided to put principle over their personal politics. And my urgent plea of all my colleagues in the House, and that means every Democrat in the House, is to think carefully, pray, and finally do the right thing and help us to bring an end to the pain of the American people. This has gone on too long. Too many people have suffered, and it's long overdue. That's the update I wanted to give you this morning. There are probably lots of questions, but I'm going to get a lot of my own questions answered later today, so stay tuned for more. Thanks so much.
I gifted my husband these pants, and now he wears them everywhere. Meet Mesh Iron.
Overnight to bring an end to this record.
I'm so excited that we had 8 senators have a moment of clarity, and I'm so glad that they caved. They owned the shutdown. They celebrated the shutdown. They destroyed the blue-collar worker, air traffic controllers, SNAP programs. They bragged about what they did, and we had 8 wonderful senators have that moment of clarity. They caved. So it's going to be procedure right now. They're bringing Cornyn. I believe he was flying in from Texas. We get that vote. We have a conference call. We're going to huddle this morning. I believe around 10 or 11 with the speaker. I imagine we'll get the 48-hour call. We'll be there Wednesday, probably work all day Wednesday, Thursday, bang this out. Should have it to the president's desk by Friday.
So you're expecting the president to sign it and reopen this government by the end of this week. Look, the House voting timing is when? Wednesday?
Wednesday would be the earliest, Maria, probably Thursday.
And that's Ohio Congressman Michael Rulli with me earlier on this program, expecting the government to reopen Thursday or Friday. The Senate clearing a critical procedural hurdle overnight to bring an end to this record 41-day government shutdown. And that's because 8 Democrat caucus members joined all but 1 Republican in a 60-40 vote, allowing the updated continuing resolution to move forward after more than 13 times votes since September. It includes a full-year minibus for 3 appropriations bills to be attached, funding agencies through next fall. It also funds the SNAP program through next September and reverses federal worker layoffs, a final package vote set for the coming days, as you just heard. Joining me now with more is Arkansas Congressman French Hill. He is the chairman of the House Financial Services Committee. Mr. Chairman, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. And I know the deal, of course, needs the president's signature. But what's the impact on the financial services industry, in your view, now that we will see a reopening?
Well, Maria, it's good to be back with you. First of all, the decline in uncertainty after Chuck Schumer led Democrats off into the desert for 40 days. We've got clarity that leads, I think, to a better business environment. One thing that is so frustrating to our business owners, operators, public and private, is government uncertainty. And when you have this kind of a shutdown, not only are you punishing workers, punishing government workers, punishing our families dependent on government programs, but you're also throwing uncertainty in the market, like, can I get my S-1 approved at the SEC for my company to go public? What if market conditions wholly change in the 40 days of Democrat shutdown? So I think this is good news. I look forward to getting the Financial Services Committee back up and running on the issues that are important to the American people, like housing affordability, how artificial intelligence will affect their banking and securities accounts.
Yeah, I think you make great points because the uncertainty certainly did impact progress and growth. I mean, look, we're going to see these numbers in the first quarter when we actually see the serious impact that this has had to the economy, these 41 days of being closed. But I wonder what it was that actually got those Democrats to say enough. Was it the fact that we're seeing serious impact to the economy? Was it the fact that travel was snarled and canceled across the country and it was really impacting American families? Was it the fact that so many people had lost their SNAP benefits? Or was it the discussion over the filibuster, as Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson raised to me yesterday? Here's what he said. Watch.
Democrats, we already know, they absolutely will nuke the filibuster. They purged the 2 members that prevented that last time. Every last one of them in the Senate right now is pledged to nuke the filibuster. I can't imagine a Democrat Senate for Senate candidate not having to pledge that. So when they gain power, and that's what we need to prevent, they can never gain power again. If they gain power, they'll nuke the filibuster to maintain power. They will obstruct every good piece of legislation President Trump and Republicans want to pass. So we better act first. I wish the Democrats respect the filibuster. It's a good thing for the institution, but they don't. So you have to recognize that reality. Are Democrats dedicated to nuking the filibuster when the other side's in power or not? Be about the only thing that would restrain them from nuking it when they got power if they're on record as saying no when President Trump was in office.
Do you think you have the support within the Republican Party?
Probably not now, but again, we didn't have the support to change the rules on nominations until the Democrats were so obstructive, so obnoxious. When the House passed a very reasonable CR, the same type of continuing resolution the Democrats voted for 13 times under Biden at Biden's spending levels, and they are still holding firm, emboldened by Tuesday's election.
Congressman, that's pretty damning that so many people expect that if the Democrats do get the trifecta and get in charge again, that they will do away with the filibuster. Wow.
Yeah, it's terrible. Look, the Democrats want to pack the Supreme Court. The Democrats want to have Puerto Rico added as a state, D.C. as a state. They want to run rampant over our Constitution and our way of life. If we let this happen, that's the gateway to it. I'm opposed to doing away with the filibuster. I think it protects minority rights. What we need to do to fix it is a much more elegant solution. Let's have Mr. Smith go to Washington, just like in the movie, and make these senators, if they're so intent on shutting down the government, they've got to hold the floor for a live traditional filibuster and not give up the microphone. That's the only way to put discipline back in the filibuster process. If you can stop all government by just not showing up to vote or voting no and have no other consequence, the only people hurt by that are the American people. And if the Democrats get in control and try to do what FDR tried to do and pack the court, the only person hurt there is the entire American democracy and our Constitution.
The police don't want you to know this, but the reason we always ask for your insurance.
Wow, that is just unbelievable. Well, look, when the government finally reopens this week, we're expecting Congress can take on the Clarity Act, the long-awaited crypto market regulation bill, bipartisan talks reportedly resuming in the Senate. Mr. Chairman, what can you tell us? Because no doubt a reopening is good for financial services and for crypto as well, right?
You bet, because we have pending before the Congress a National Defense Authorization Bill trying to repair the ag damage to our economy from no farm bill during the Biden administration, no Biden enforcement of the Chinese soybeans deal. We need an ag bill, and that's another reason to open to Congress. But you're right. We've made progress during September and October on market structure for digital assets. The Clarity Act, which we passed with 78 Democrats in the House back in July, is now subject of intensive work in the Senate by both Senate Democrats and Republicans on the Banking Committee and on the Senate Agriculture Committee. They're making strong progress, and I hope we can conclude that in coming days. It's been hurt by the shutdown, so I'm looking forward to working with them and getting it across the floor and to President Trump's desk.
Okay, so the Senate will amend this bill and then send it to the House. Are you expecting that the House will pass this bill? Tell us how the next couple of days look from your standpoint.
Well, the Senate's working hard in both the Ag Committee and the Banking Committee to come up with any suggestions or amendments they have to the House Clarity Act. We're trying to work with them to coordinate that work, listen to their ideas. They're talking among themselves on a bipartisan basis. And then we'll work to make sure that we have a product that on a bicameral basis we can pass again on the House floor and send to President Trump's desk. This is an important economic growth consideration for the U.S. It's an important priority for both Republicans and Democrats on a bicameral basis.
Do you think this last 41 days of government closure is going to hit the economy hard?
I do. I don't think this is why, for all my years in Congress, there is no upside to a shutdown.
Yeah.
The people who promoted this shutdown, Chuck Schumer, have nothing to show for it except human misery, inconvenience, and higher government spending. And he shut down the very process that he was in the middle of, which was appropriating money for fiscal 26. And this is something that we have to do on a bipartisan basis, and we need 60 votes in the Senate in order to achieve that spending. But government shutdowns accomplish nothing except hurt the economy and hurt the American families.
And then there was this Supreme Court stay put in. We're joined now by the Democratic governor of Maryland, Wes Moore. Good to have you here in person.
It's great to be with you. Thank you.
So, Governor, 1 in 8 Americans use food stamps in Maryland. You have about 700,000 people, as I understand it, who rely on this for food aid. Since the Supreme Court put that stay in place on Friday, do you know whether that money will actually be available to residents in your state to buy food?
We don't know, and that's why we're not waiting. It is why, just in the past few days, I have authorized over $10 million that's going towards heating assistance for people in the state of Maryland. Over $10 million has gone to our Maryland food banks, that we have made public transportation free for all of our federal workers because they, in many cases, are going to work and not being paid. Mm-hmm. And I have also authorized $62 million to go towards SNAP to make sure that SNAP is not going to be interrupted for the people of Maryland for as long as we can, despite the fact that we are waiting for the President of the United States to finally do his job. We are watching the president who is literally breaking the law so people can starve. But we're not going to sit there and tolerate it in our state. Well,
you just heard Director Hassett say that they are trying to follow the law, which is why they went to the courts. The USDA did say they were going to work towards implementing full payments, and then there was this Supreme Court stay put in place. So do you have clarity on when money might be coming through at all? Like, what's the federal government telling you?
There is no clarity at all. In the past 6 days, we've received 4 different measures of guidance from the USDA and from the Trump administration about how to handle it, where initially it was said, well, listen, we want the states to help to support. And despite the fact that this program was built as a partnership between the federal government and the states, where the federal government were really helping to underwrite these costs for people. And then once we decided to step up and say we are going to make sure that our people are going to be okay.
You were fronting the money.
That we were going to front the money. Okay. We've now received guidance saying the states are going to be punished for fronting the money. There is a chaos, and it is an intentional chaos that we are seeing from this administration, and where they have money for everything. They got money to fight wars. They got money for ballrooms. They got money for everything. But when it comes to supporting the American people, that's now when they're crying, well, we're broke, and that's not what the law requires us to do.
As you know, the White House says those sponsorships for the ballroom are separate from government money. But yeah. On the issue, though, of the shutdown itself, on Friday, we did see the Democratic leader Schumer offer to end it if Republicans agree to a 1-year extension of the Obamacare health care subsidies. Republicans said that's a non-starter. This is going to make this a big issue for the midterms. But would you tell the Democrats on Capitol Hill to dig in, that the pain that the people who are living in your state is somehow going to be worth it in the end for an extension of a tax credit?
There is no pain that is worth it. Our people are hurting. And they're hurting because of these games that we continue to see from Washington, D.C.
But would you tell Democrats just take the vote, open the government, then keep negotiating health care?
I want the government reopened now. There is no state that is dealing with more of an impact from this than the state of Maryland. We have over 260,000 federal workers within our state, that even before the shutdown, Donald Trump had fired over 15,000 Maryland workers, federal workers, more than any other state in this country. But I also know that saying that a prerequisite for having the federal government open shouldn't be kicking up premiums by 90%, by kicking people off of health care. Like there's a barbaric nature to this ask and this request, particularly when we're watching how the Trump administration, they have the White House, the House, and the Senate. They can get this deal done by just simply making a phone call, but they're allowing this pain to exist.
But Democrats also have a promise from the Republican leader in the Senate that he'll talk about health care if they reopen the government. Why isn't that good enough? Would you tell your members of the Democratic Party to relieve the pain in the immediate term from your state?
I would tell them that we need to ensure that reopening the government does not mean kicking my people off of health care. Mm-hmm. That when we're spending time right now over in Western Maryland, in Appalachia, and I'm proud to serve as the co-chair of the Appalachian Regional Commission, where we're serving Appalachia all throughout, not just Maryland, but throughout West Virginia, throughout Tennessee and Pennsylvania. And when we're speaking to our folks out there who are already watching their premiums jump, who are already watching everything become more expensive because of these policies, I don't think that anybody, whether in Western Maryland or any part of my state, would say, yes, it's okay if you just watch my health care go away.
Well, health care prices are going up even in the private market for a lot of different reasons. But let me ask you about what's happening in Maryland. this past Tuesday out in California, we saw this Proposition 50. 64% of California voters came out in support of what Gavin Newsom put out there with redistricting. This would allow him to charge ahead with plans to potentially gain an additional 5 Democratic congressional seats. This is gerrymandering. You are looking at midterm redistricting in your state as well. Of 8 districts, you only have 1 Republican. Do you really think Maryland is drawn in an unfair way right now?
I think that the reason that I ordered the Governor's Redistricting Advisory Commission is because I want to make sure that we can have a bipartisan group being able to look at the maps in the state of Maryland. This is something that happens every
You don't
single...
think these maps are fair now?
This is something that happens every single decade. And if other states are going to have this process and go through this journey of identifying whether or not they have fair maps in a mid-decade cycle, then so should Maryland. I'm just not sure why we should be playing by a different set of rules than Texas or than Florida or than Ohio.
Because
or all
you
these
say
other
those
places.
states are being unfair. So why adopt unfair policies in your state?
This is just simply about making sure that we can have fair and representative maps and we can go through our process. It's the reason that I put together this commission where my job is not to draw the maps. That what we've just simply said is I want this bipartisan commission to be able to actually speak with the people and to be able to go through their process and just simply say that if other states are going to go through this process, that we're not just going to sit on our hands because Donald Trump tells us to. That's not the way this process is going to work.
Your state Senate president, Democrat Bill Ferguson, says this could backfire. He wrote, I believe mid-cycle redistricting twists rules for potential short-term advantage while undermining trust in institutions and ultimately democracy. It's too risky and jeopardizes your state's ability to fight against the radical Trump administration. How do you make sure it doesn't backfire? Do you accept a map that gives you more Republican districts? You're not going to do that.
I think fighting for democracy is never risky. I think that's our job as leaders and elected officials.
So you're not committing to going with the outcome of what this commission provides to you?
No, I think the commission, what I want is for the commission to do their work and the commission to do their job. My job is not to draw the maps. And frankly, it's the state legislature's job to decide to vote on it. That is not my responsibility. My job is to make sure that I'm protecting the democratic process. And the Senate President and I, we agree on the crisis that Donald Trump has put us in. He agrees on the fact that we have watched an administration that's using the Constitution like it's a suggestion box. But what I'm simply, and where we differ, is the urgency that this moment requires, the fight that this moment requires. And I personally am someone who is not going to allow Donald Trump to determine whether or not Maryland follows this idea of saying, are we going to do everything we can to make sure we're preserving our democracy?
Governor Moore, thank you for your time
Thank you
this
so
morning.
much.
If you live in a Delaware zip code and have 0 DUIs in the last 5 years,
Shalom, brothers. We just lost another man who, like many before him, appeared to have everything that so many men strive to attain. On Wednesday night, November 5th, Marhsawn Kneeland of the Dallas Cowboys reportedly led state troopers on a pursuit late that night after being spotted speeding. Reports indicate that before the incident, Marhsawn sent text messages, goodbye messages to family and friends, prompting concern from all of those who loved him the most. His girlfriend also contacted authorities saying that he had been, and that's Marhsawn, had been struggling mentally and was armed, and that she feared he might end it all. Well, later that night, officers found his vehicle crashed alongside Dallas Parkway. Hours afterward, searching, Marhsawn was discovered nearby, unalived. What makes stories like this so painful is that many strong men believe isolation and solitude are the same. But there's a profound difference, my brothers. Solitude is chosen, it's structured, it's purposeful, and it's disciplined. It's where a man meets his thoughts and refines them. But isolation isn't chosen, it's reactive. It's withdrawal disguised as focus. And while it may feel productive for a season, it slowly rots the deeper parts of a man's heart and mind that require connection, correction, and communion to heal. This is why so many men collapse silently, because isolation convinces us that being alone is strength, when in truth, it's a setup for a downfall. I share this to reveal a pattern. Men often send emotional signals long before they break. There's no freedom in the facade, and although stoicism is a mask that hides the pain, it also aids in suffocating the life out of men. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention reports that self-inflicted death is now the third leading cause of death among Black males and young adults ages 15 to 34. And regardless of ethnicity, men die by self-inflicted death 3 to 4 times as likely as women. So let's never forget, my brothers, that depression doesn't look like sadness. It actually wears a smile. Unresolved trauma wears a smile. Even thoughts of ending one's life can hide behind a smile, as we saw with Brother Marhsawn. Honestly, I'm not here to discuss any more details of what happened that night with him. My heart is grieved. I'm praying for his family, his girlfriend, his teammates, everyone who loved him and was blessed by his presence. I'm here because behind every tragedy like this lies a quiet storm, a war that many men fight in silence. And as someone who has helped thousands of men and boys navigate through internal storms, I can tell you, this wasn't about a traffic stop or Marhsawn simply fearing he'd go to jail. Taking his own life was a byproduct of something much deeper. Whether poor mental health or emotional incarceration, he was suffering behind an infectious smile, just like thousands of men in this world today. In the United States, men die by taking their lives almost, as I said before, 4 times more often than women. Why is that, you may ask? Many therapists and psychotherapists believe because men, we do not open up. We typically just man up. And unfortunately, those around us who love us do not find out what we were dealing with until they're planning our funerals. Yet we keep pretending that being strong means feeling nothing, showing nothing, staying stoic. But from the moment we're born, we're full of joy, authenticity, and curiosity. But over time, culture reshapes us, telling us that feeling or expressing emotions is effeminate, that transparency is weakness, and that tears are something to be ashamed of. And although I've shared this many times, this is a perfect time to share it again. My brothers, tears is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you are human. Dr. William Frey, who also worked with the NFL, he discovered that tears not only contain 98% water, but also stress hormones that get excreted from our bodies when we cry.
Opioid addiction gets between you and what you love. Once monthly.
Times, this is a perfect time to share it again. My brothers, tears is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you are human. Dr. William Frey, who also worked with the NFL, he discovered that tears not only contain 98% water, but also stress hormones that get excreted from our bodies when we cry. But when we learn to bottle our pain, to wear stoicism like armor until that armor becomes our coffin, we struggle. Even Drake says in one of his songs, I believe it's called Fear, I pop bottles because I bottle my emotions. Here it is, a sign. He's telling us, look, I'm getting drunk because I can't process how I feel. There's the sign. I'm not saying that Drake is on the edge of jumping off of this life. I'm saying it's a sign. But how many more of us will continue to turn a blind eye to it? Or how many of us will say, yo, what did you mean by that? Or I'm noticing, my brother, that you're not as present as you used to be when you hang with us. You're here, but you're not here. What's going on? I'm here for you. I can't tell you, my brothers, how many men I've met who've said, I'm tired. I'm tired of being misunderstood. I'm tired of having to be strong for everyone. I'm tired of fighting the same battles in my mind. And when that exhaustion deepens, some start to believe that the only escape is to end it all. But my brothers, if you're on the edge of life and ready to jump, please hear me now. You were not created to die by your own hand. You were created to live an abundantly free life, one filled with purpose. So please do not be deceived. What most of us were taught to suppress is what we most need to survive. See, the problem isn't that men are too aggressive. It's that we've been programmed to process pain through aggression, to release what we feel in destructive ways through violence, addiction, isolation, or rage. And when those outlets fail us, we implode instead of express. Imagine how many good men would still be living today if they had just paused long enough to feel what they had been taught to ignore, to cry instead of conceal, to speak instead of self-destruct, to call someone before calling it quits. My brothers, the war within can't be won in silence. It's won through courageous transparency with the right person at the right time. Now, I know sometimes you can't reach your confidant or counselor or therapist. Sometimes you're just too exhausted to pray, too numb to fight. But it's in those moments you must learn to cast your prayers unto Yah. But He's not disappointed in your weariness. Please understand that, because so many men feel that they have to have their lives together before they cry out and cast their cares to the Most High. He's simply waiting to strengthen you, for it is written that He loves you, and to cast all your cares upon Him. But if those dark thoughts ever start to lead you down the wrong path, please call 988 or go to the nearest emergency room. You don't have to face the battlefield of your mind alone. I get it. Please know I understand. See, when men are taught to suffer in silence, their humanity, our humanity, bows to the idol of masculinity, that we can only be strong and provide. After that, there's nothing left for us to do. If we show that we're affected, that we show that we're weak, that we show that we're struggling, that we show that our marriage is failing, that if we show that we lack confidence, that we show that we have fears, that we show that my father wound is affecting me, my mother wound is affecting me, we're no longer masculine. We're no longer a man. And that's why we see men, fathers, sons, husbands, teammates, ending their lives behind smiles, behind muscles, behind the appearance of strength, behind success. Because pain doesn't care about your paycheck. Pain doesn't care about your platform or your performance. It only is released if it's been acknowledged. That's why I tell you, my brothers, it's not enough for us to man up. We must also open up. If you're on the edge, again, please take 10 mental steps backward. Breathe.
No gas, no oil, no problem. Here's one system that handles it all. If you're looking to upgrade your heating system, this
is released if it's been acknowledged. That's why I tell you, my brothers, it's not enough for us to man up. We must also open up. If you're on the edge, again, please take 10 mental steps backward. Breathe. Then call 988. Call a friend. Call a family member. Call someone you know who will listen. There are men just like me, like us, who've been there and fought through what you're going through and are ready to help you make it through too. The truth is, the world doesn't need stronger men. We have that. We have some warriors here. What it needs is healed men, comprehensive men, men who can feel without falling apart, who can cry without quitting, who can ask for help without feeling ashamed. That's what a comprehensive man does. He masters his emotions, not by ignoring them, but by integrating them, by acknowledging them, by feeling them, by releasing them, keeping them in front of him instead of suppressing them. Maybe Marhsawn Kneeland didn't see a way out that night. Maybe his thoughts told him that the world would be better without him. But if you're hearing this, my brother, that means there's still time for you to turn everything around. There's still time to fight for your life. Still time to break the cycle. Still time to say, I'm not okay. Remember, you're not tired of living. You're tired of not living. My brother, if you're watching this and you've been wrestling with the weight of life, I need you to hear me clearly. You're not weak for feeling broken. You're not soft for feeling like you need to cry. You're human, and there's no shame in that. Instead of isolating yourself, initiate help. Instead of numbing your pain with crutches, name it, call it out. Instead of ending your story, rewrite it. Yah hasn't brought you this far to abandon you now. There's still a purpose inside of you. There's still a purpose around you. There's still people who love you and need you, waiting for you to open up so that they can help you. Don't silence your pain. Surrender to it, acknowledge it, so that you can get help. Don't give up, my brothers. Get up and live. You're not tired of living, you're tired of not living. Therefore, it's time to start fighting so that you can finally live. Shalom.
With a clear in real time. I wanted to think it through. I wanted to sleep on it. And I wanted to bring this to you today with a clearer head. So after reading the headlines, after watching all the spin, hearing all the statements coming out of Capitol Hill, I feel exactly the same way that I felt last night. Democrats caved, and people should be furious. Now, please do not get me wrong. I understand the pressure that they were under. I really do understand the pressure. I'm not a heartless person, but yesterday, I have to tell you that I was traveling. My flight was delayed 3 hours before I even got on the plane, and then we sat on the runway for a long time after that. And in that time, making my way to the airport and spending time in the airport for so long, I got to speak with the people who keep this country moving. That's the TSA agents, that's the airport workers, the guys who show up day after day through all of this, okay? I didn't pull out the camera because I was going through security and I didn't want to break any airport rules. But one young man told me that it has been rough. He said, man, fewer of us are showing up. People are tired, but somebody's got to do it. I mean, those were his words. The other man told me that he was about to miss his third paycheck. And he said it quietly, almost like he didn't want to hear it out loud. He didn't want himself to hear it out loud. He didn't want other people to hear it out loud. And at one point I asked one of them if I could give him a tip just to say thank you. And he gave me that look like, man, I want to take it, right? And he looked like he wanted to. But then he looked up at the security cameras, and then he took a breath and he said, all the cameras in the TSA security area, and he said, man, nah, man, I just can't. Thanks, though. I wanted to hand him the money anyway, but I didn't want to risk his job. And that moment stuck with me because that's what this shutdown looked like. Proud, hardworking people doing their jobs while Washington played games. So look, trust me, I understand why people were desperate for this to end. But that's what makes this even more frustrating for me. Because after 39 days, 40 days of chaos, after weeks of workers struggling, after poll showed the public was on their side, Senate Democrats just folded. I mean, let's just be honest. They just folded. They didn't just blink. They walked away from a fight that they were winning. They took the same deal, the very same deals that Republicans were offering before this whole thing even began, a short-term funding patch, a promise of a future vote on healthcare taxes, a future vote. There were no guarantees, no reforms, no real protection for the families who are hanging by a thread right now. So I'm asking the same question a lot of Americans are asking today. What was all of this for? What was it for? Meanwhile, the country is hurting. While federal workers were lining up at food banks, Donald Trump was living like none of it even existed, like it wasn't even happening. He expanded the ballroom, right, at the White House. And then he was at Mar-a-Lago throwing a Great Gatsby-themed party while federal workers were going unpaid. And then last night, while the shutdown was still technically in effect, he shows up at the Washington Commanders game. His jet, like Air Force One, flies low over the stadium, and he waves and smiles, and he eats it up, and he soaks it all in. And by the way, your tax money is paying for all of that, for the fuel wasted. It is a show, always a show. And the people paying for it are the same ones that he ignored. That's what people are tired of. They're tired of watching him perform power while pretending to care about struggle. They're tired of watching Democrats try to look responsible while Republicans play kingmaker. Because here is the absolute 100% truth. You cannot beat a man who governs by chaos with people who are terrified of confrontation, terrified of optics. Democrats, you had the leverage. You had the American people behind you. You had the moral high ground. The polls showed it. The election results showed it. Voters were rejecting Trumpism. I mean, just after state, county after county, municipality after municipality. They were rejecting Trumpism, rejecting cruelty, rejecting the noise. And then when they had the chance to turn that momentum into power, the Democrats, they walked away from the table, holding most of the cards. They said, let's reopen the government now and deal with the rest later. What? But later never comes. Not in politics, not when you're dealing with someone like Donald Trump. This man has made a career out of promising that he's going to deal with it later. Remember, give me 2 weeks, give me 2 weeks, in 2 weeks, everything, right? Remember that? Ask the contractors who built his casinos. Ask the students from Trump University. Ask the American people. Later is how he always gets away with everything. And then he stirs something else up. The media focuses on it and then forgets about the other thing. And now Democrats, they just played into that same pattern. You can't win if you're afraid to use your leverage. That's what negotiation is. It's not cruelty. It's conviction. You've got to be convicted. You've got to stand strong, and you have to have a backbone. Sometimes you have to endure short-term pain to protect people from long-term damage. And let's be real. That is the same thing that Donald Trump has been preaching to his supporters now since he's been in office and with all of these tariffs. That's what he said about the tariffs. Short-term pain for long-term gain. He told people to trust him, to hold out while jobs disappeared, while wages fell, while prices went up, while factories closed. He said it was all part of some grand master plan that he had. He had no plan. It wasn't part of the plan. He didn't know what he was doing. And now Democrats couldn't even do the one thing that he's been selling to his base. Hold out with purpose. They had the chance to say, we're not reopening this government until healthcare is secure, until people are protected, until we get guarantees in writing. They weren't able to do that. Instead, they blinked. And the people who are paying the price are the same ones that I met at the airport yesterday, that I meet on the streets when I talk to people. I'm out there all the time. You know, I do it. The man missing 3 paychecks, he said, no, man, I can't take it. Those are the people who hold the line every day and they just watch their leaders drop it. It's disheartening because this wasn't just about a shutdown. It was about about showing the American people, showing the country what leadership looks like. It was about proving that empathy doesn't mean weakness, that you can care about people and still fight for them. You can care about people and still fight for them. But instead, Democrats gave people the same Washington story that they have been hearing for decades. Well, we tried our best, but politics got in the way. No, politics didn't get in the way. Fear did. And some other things. I don't know if it was donors. I don't know. I don't know what it was. But fear did. And I say that not to tear them down, but because I want better for them. I want better for us. And Democrats are the only ones on the side of democracy right now. Democrats, please start standing up. And oh my God.
Guys, got hair loss? I know what you're thinking. Should I shave my head? Comb it over?
Because leadership isn't about avoiding pain. It's about giving it purpose. If those healthcare credits expire, people's costs go up. Families lose coverage. Some will die because they can't afford care. That's not politics. That is real life. That's the truth. And it's exactly what this deal failed to protect. So yes, the government is reopening right now. Workers are going to get paid. Flights will be back on schedule. But the damage, the moral damage is still there. Because this isn't just about getting back to work. This is about what kind of country we want to be. Are we a country that rewards showmanship and cowardice, or one that stands firm when it is hard? Because I'm going to tell you this, those workers at the airport, they stood firm. They showed up, they did their jobs, even when they weren't getting paid. And their leaders, the ones who said that they were fighting for them, didn't. So today, okay, I'm not clapping for compromise. I'm calling for courage right now. Because if you can't stand strong when the people are with you, when the polls, the power, and the moral authority are all on your side, then what are you even doing there? Why are you even there? Democrats don't like to hear it. I've heard it from them last night and today. Stop saying we caved. No, you caved. Democrats caved. And people should be furious because this wasn't just about reopening the government. It was about reopening the question of who still has the backbone to lead. And right now, that answer isn't nearly as clear as it should be. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Your support means the world to us.
Let me tell you about Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom could have sat on the sidelines, you see, because everything looks blue in California. But he decided that it was bigger than just his state. He decided that this was about the democracy of all of us. And frankly, he decided if you come for Texas, then I'ma come for you. Listen, it's been a while since we had leadership that had our backs.
I am not here today because Brother Newsom is a poli-sci Santa Clara grad. I'm not here because he has managed more than 20 businesses. I'm not here because he's a Willie Brown appointee. I'm not here because in 2010 he was elected Lieutenant Governor of the great state of California. Re-elected again in 2014. I'm not here because he was elected Governor of the great state of California in 2018. re-elected again in 2022. I'm here today because he is a future president of the United States of America.
I'm so excited to be back home. Now, y'all know we got a little drama going on, you know, at my workplace. So it's a little dramatic, okay? And I've got to tell y'all that I'm not only excited to be home, but I'm excited to be home and to be home with a real governor. Yeah, because well, anyway. Some of y'all may know how I feel about him. Yeah. So y'all are so funny. Okay. Let me get to this so I can get to the main thing. Okay. We love you, Jasmine. Oh, I love you back. I love you back. So I never know what I'm going to say. And so there's so much energy in here that I know that I'm going to my phone and I'm going to say the stuff on my phone. So, oh yes, the sorors in here too. So as I was on the trail, y'all gonna let me get through this. So as I was on the campaign trail, and I was on the campaign trail for Biden and Harris. Yeah, the people. Yeah, right. Okay. All right. I digress. So I used to go so many different places around the country, and some of you may know that I'm the child of a preacher, and so I would always come up with a song. So I didn't have like a Bible verse I would come from, but I would go from like a song. It may be something that's modern, or it may be a gospel song. And considering the energy in here, this feels appropriate. There is a gospel song that goes, I don't feel no ways tired. It says, I've come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me the road would be easy. I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me. Now, the reason that I want to start with this song, because I need y'all to have this energy, this amazing energy that I am feeling in this room. I'm going to need y'all to keep it up. Y'all are not going to be allowed to feel tired, because we got a lot of work to do. Now, I know that we have talked about November 4th, and everybody was really excited about November 4th. We even saw historic wins in places like Mississippi and Georgia, without them even having the investments. Let me tell you something, Texas, we can do this. We can do this. If you just make sure that you keep that song in your mind, that you feel no ways tired. So let's talk about where we came from, okay? I hate to talk about it, but we're going to talk about it. So, as I said, as we did a rally in California right before Prop 50 passed.
Should these glasses be illegal in the U.S.? Nobody believed me at first, but now everybody wants a pair.
You know, our feeble little governor. Now, he doesn't know how to answer the call of the people. In fact, he usually doesn't want to show up and talk to the people. But somehow, when that orange line rings, he knows how to pick up the phone and do whatever it is that he is told to do. Now, that's not what leadership looks like. Not at all. That is not what it looks like. But here's the thing.
And Satan's called.
Clip that. I am not. The Justice Department is investigating the Black Lives Matter organization over fraud allegations, saying it misused tens of millions of dollars in donations.
BLM is a scam.
Clip that.
I am not the first black activist. In fact, there are 326 black activists facing federal charges.
Executive with Black Lives Matter is accused of siphoning more than $10 million from donors. The claim was made in a court filing by the grassroots arm of the organization.
BLM was literally a scam. They had bought mansions and
says Black Lives Matter secretly bought a $6 million house. Allies and critics alike have questioned where the organization's money has gone.
Now, this organization is so crazy, BLM activists have been arrested and convicted of lynching people. I'm not talking about the KKK. I'm talking about BLM.
Pasadena, California, where a Black Lives Matter organizer is facing up to 4 years in state prison after she was convicted of a rarely known statute in California law, known up until recently as felony lynching.
So the Department of Justice is investigating the scam of BLM. Let's talk about it. Here's a quick message from the sponsor of this video, ZocDoc. You ever do anything where something's off? Your eye's swollen, your neck got a weird pain, or you have a cold that just won't quit. And instead of calling a doctor, you scroll TikTok and YouTube like that's gonna fix it. Or maybe you're just too busy. You think it'll heal on its own. Or you're like, I don't know which doctor to go to. Trust me, I've made every excuse in the book too. But now I use ZocDoc, and it makes things a lot easier. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors and instantly book appointments. We're talking about over 100,000 doctors from across every specialty, from mental health, dental, primary care, urgent care, you name it, they got it. And with ZocDoc, you can filter by insurance, see who's nearby, and check real reviews from verified patients. Now, simply just pick your time slot and boom, appointments usually happen between 24 and 72 hours, sometimes even the same day. Now, full disclosure, I personally use ZocDoc, and the doctor that I go to now, I found on ZocDoc. Stop putting off those doctor's appointments. Go to ZocDoc.com. Let's be honest. With the killing of Trayvon Martin, police officer Derek Chauvin was convicted of murdering him during an arrest that went wrong. Now, this woman, Patrisse Cullors, is credited with co-founding the Black Lives Matter group in 2013. The group came together after the killing of Trayvon Martin and the acquittal of George Zimmerman. Now, Black Lives Matter started on July 13th, 2023, and this tweet started the movement. So now let's just be honest with the situation. This group was never anything serious, and we can tell that from its tax returns in 2019. So here's the group's 2019 tax returns. Now in part 1, where it says revenues, expenses, and changes of net assets or fund balances, this is where you're supposed to put if you made any money and what you did with it. And as you can see at the end, it's all zero. Matter of fact, this tax return is so bad, the whole tax return is zero. They handed in essentially a blank tax return. Now, here where it says list of officers, you see Patrisse Cullors. She is the executive director at this time. They made absolutely no money. All the rest of the pages are essentially blank. See, they even signed their name to this. This is it. It's all zero. They had absolutely no money, no assets, or at least that's what this tax return is saying. They had nothing. These pages are empty. Matter of fact, we have to get to the end, and that's where they have to put in what the company's about, and that's all they do. That's it. Essentially, the highest number on his tax return is zero. It's like, that's it. They've made nothing. They have nothing. Absolutely nothing. But next year, they'll have $90 million cash. Now, this was the last tax return that was going to look like this because George Floyd happened. Now, after the George Floyd incident, BLM raised over $90 million in less than a year. And Patrisse Cullors, who you saw was the executive director when they had absolutely not a dime to spend, she's still the executive director, and now they have $90 million to spend.
Contrary to what, has been reported, much of the funding that came in was from individual donors. That was a lot of white guilt money. There's a lot of white folks being like, we just got to put the money.
That's that good guilt. $90 million worth of guilt. That's a lot of good.
You could say Domino's new spicy chicken bacon ranch pizza is $9.99 when you mix and match. Or, you could just order it.
Here's what nobody's telling you about the new bearskin hoodie. This fleece is thick. It's made from 340 GSM of bearskin.
Yeah.
So, $90 million is a lot of money. So what do you think they did with that money? Well, Patrisse Cullors, who's running the organization, said, hey, let me just hook up my family and friends because we have the money to spend. And she started hiring her family and friends and giving them monstrously huge salaries to do things they had no experience of doing. Check it out. Cullors' entire family needed to be on the payroll, and they needed to pay them hundreds of thousands of dollars to do work for them. For instance, Cullors' brother, sister, mother, even her baby's father, all of them getting money through BLM. Here's some examples. This is Paul Cullors, brother of Patrisse Cullors. He's BLM's head of security, and before he got this job, he was a graffiti artist in New York City. Now, the New York Post reports that he gets an annual salary of $139,000 a year. BLM also hires his security company, Cullors Security LLC. In 2020, BLM paid the company $840,000 for Paul Cullors' security professionalism. He also made another $756,000 in 2021. Now, the conflict of interest was so wild here, they even listed it on the tax returns where you're supposed to list it, but here's what they put: business transactions involving interested parties, name Paul Cullors, Cullors Protection LLC, relationship between interested parties and the organization, family member of founder and executive director, and doesn't forget he's a board member too. Description of transaction, professional security services. And remember, before this, he was a graffiti artist. Now, Patrisse's baby daddy was up next. His company, Trap Heels LLC, got $969,000 from BLM. Oh yeah, and Trap Hills was also paid $150,000 for a November 2020 live stream of election night. Here's Patrisse also talking about how her mom and sister were getting paid by BLM.
Is there any truth to the reports that your family has been hired to work at the property that was purchased by Black Lives Matter?
While my brother is the head of security and my mom and sister did work at the property, there are also dozens of other people who work in the organization that are Black folks and are doing amazing work. It's not like I literally, opened up the bank accounts and was like, I'm bringing all my family and friends in.
Well, you pretty much did bring all of your family, unless you're saying your sister, your brother, your mother, your baby's father, and your spouse are not part of your family, because those were the people who were getting paid. Now, remember the question the interviewer asked Patrisse about the property? Listen again.
Is there any truth to the reports that your family has been hired to work at the property that was purchased by Black Lives Matter?
Well, the property they're talking about is a $6 million mansion that was purchased with donation money from BLM. Patrisse even shot a YouTube video and put it on her channel. Check it out. Now, I don't know how this is in any way dedicated to ending state-sanctioned violence, liberating Black people, and ending white supremacy forever. It looks like they're having a really good time in a really expensive house. This is just the tip of the iceberg, people. BLM board members have started consulting firms all over the place, and these consulting firms are getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars from BLM. For instance, Bowers Consulting Firm is run by a current board member, Sholama Bowers. He was the consultant of all consultants. His consulting costs were $2 million. $2 million. This guy's the greatest consultant ever. And then there's a lawsuit that accused him of siphoning off tens of millions of dollars this way. Here it is. The new leader of the National Black Lives Matter nonprofit siphoned more than $10 million in fees from donors to pay his consulting firm, according to the lawsuit. Now, we can go through these examples all day, but obviously the finances are funny and things just don't add up. Now, let's think about this as rational people. They raised $90 million. As of today, $60 million of that is gone like a fart in a wind. They only have about roughly $33 million left. So they went from operating from no money, remember they weren't making anything. We saw a blank tax return, to almost spending $60 million in 2 years. Now, because of all this shadiness, Black Lives Matter had to stop online fundraising after California and Washington threatened legal action against the not-for-profit. Soon after, Cullors resigned because obviously the money was looking a little funny. This was after her family had obviously made millions of dollars in salaries, consulting fees, and security fees. Now, when people started finding out what they were doing with the money, they weren't spending it on the cause, they were spending it on themselves with these mansions and thousands of dollars. Now, remember, BLM is nationwide. So now these activists who are using donor money in these wild ways started going to jail for fraud. Here's one in Boston.
Boston community activist is going to be sentenced in January after pleading guilty to federal fraud charges. Prosecutors say Monica Cannon Grant took thousands of dollars in donations that were earmarked for her anti-violence nonprofit. However, she spent it on herself.
The mom, would you have had a problem
with someone who is under federal indictment giving a speech to your kids?
No. Because the people closest to the problem understand how to solve it. I am not the first black activist. In fact, there are 326 black activists facing federal charges.
Matter of fact, the president of BLM Georgia is also going to jail for fraud.
Court documents say Sir Major Page will spend 42 months behind bars. He was arrested in 2020 for fraudulently using a Black Lives Matter nonprofit organization by way of misrepresentations and defrauding donors. According to the FBI, Page spent more than $200,000 on personal items with no identifiable purchases or expenditures for social or racial injustice.
You got to hear about this thing. There's this new air purifier out there. It's basically a mold killer that destroys hidden spores and...
So as you can see locally,
items with no identifiable purchases or expenditures for social or racial injustice.
So as you can see locally, these people are being held accountable for stealing donor money. But on a national level, the DOJ didn't go after BLM National. And that is what they're looking into now. They're investigating BLM National because of all the stuff you've just seen in this video.
The Justice Department is investigating the Black Lives Matter organization over fraud allegations, saying it misused tens of millions of dollars in donations. The DOJ's investigation reportedly focused on the foundation's handling of donations collected in the wake of the George Floyd case back in 2020. Now, at that time, organizers received a surge of more than $90 million. The Associated Press reports critics of the nonprofit foundation and of the BLM movement broadly accused organizers of not being transparent about how it was spending the donations. That criticism grew louder after BLM Foundation leaders in 2022 confirmed they used donations to purchase a $6 million Los Angeles area property that includes a home with 6 bedrooms and bathrooms.
Now, the DOJ is looking into this, but one big thing happened. All the money is gone. BLM is saying they've spent all that money. They're broke.
Black Lives Matter's national organization at risk of going bankrupt.
But the entire situation looks incredibly shady.
And you have broken down the numbers to the penny. We're going to do a little bit more broad strokes here, but let's take a look. Total revenue, basically $8.5 million. Total expenses, $17 million. That is not good when you do the math. And let's do that math. And you can see the total deficit that they're running is about $8.5 million. And on top of that, they had investment losses of about $10 million as well. So how did it get this bad if for years, Adam, they've been on the receiving end of all this white guilt money, all of this corporate money, and in the year after George Floyd, they received $90 million. How did it get this bad in the red?
Now, obviously, you're going to have half the internet saying that this DOJ investigation into BLM is politically motivated. Others are going to say it's long time coming. But I'm going to ask you, I think this should have happened under the Biden administration. We knew what was going on. She's paying her brother, her boyfriend, or, this guy's taking $10 million into his own consult. This was all a scam. So tell me, what do you think? Do you think any of these BLM officials are going to be prosecuted? Do you think anybody's going to go to jail? Or do you think that this is going to be just a big nothing burger? Let's all find out together. Don't forget, like, share, subscribe, do all that great YouTube stuff. If you listen to my voice at this part of the video, my name is Nate the Lawyer. I'm out. Peace.